Hari Om. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Namaste friends. Welcome to session 141 of Bhagavad Gita verse by verse. In today's class, we are taking up the verses 45 to 50 of 50 to 51 to 55 of chapter 18, known as Moksha Sannyasa Yoga. Umari Titiksha is going to chant these verses later at the end of class. Now, before Dr. Hegdes gives the introduction of today's class, Srimati Nilima will revisit the verses we studied in our last episode. Over to you, Nilima.
Jai Gurudev. Performance of duties according to one's deals with Pravritti Marga. Verse 46 speaks about we setting our hands and feet in the field of activity along with mind and intellect held constantly on divine can help us reach highest perfection through the performance of one's own duties. Just as a musician sings song being in tune with Shruti and a dancer who dances to the rhythm of drum, so too devotee performs his duties by constant communion with God, which helps seeker in exhaustion of one's own vasanas with the spirit of total surrender. In 47th verse, performing our own dharma says it's better than the well-accomplished dharma of another. When individual strives in a field contrary to the existing vasanas, he not only fails to gain any exhaustion of the existing vasanas, but also creates a new load of vasanas in one's temperament. So it's better to perform one's own duties, though imperfect, than the duties of some other people well performed. Just as a smoke to fire, every action has got dosha. All actions, whether good or bad, are Lord's manifestation and serve his purpose. 48th verse, there are two forces born with, impulses born with the mental temperaments and born into due to pressure of environments that tickles new temptations, and these two forces control, guide, define and determine our actions. One should follow subjective vasanas even if they are defective. We must courageously renounce all demands of the objective world. The more inner being is ventilated with the conscious divine, the less will ego assert. So no defects can pollute our actions. 49th verse, when one forgets spiritual dignity, the misconception of ego arises. We lose our real personality and come to believe that we are merely limited ego. Like a drunken person, he identifies oneself with a false identity. When the ignorance is ended, one experiences all full consciousness. Naturally, then there will be no want or any desires arise in our bosom, and even the thought breeding also ends. Then action marching out through archway of our body ends, and one achieves actionlessness, which is also called as Naishkarmya Siddhi. By selfless activity in field, seeker achieves purity in heart through getting rid of existing vasanas. Intellect, devoid of all corpses of attachment with the equipment of perception, feelings, and thinking, and the respective objects perceived, felt, and thought of. One achieves supreme state, Naishkarmya Siddhi, by focusing on consciousness, pulsating through all equipments. 50th verse, yogi, in tune with God, learns to act in the world without attachment. One attains perfection by detaching oneself from wrong tendencies. Even the thinnest film of ignorance is removed by the knowledge. Lord Krishna asks to learn meditation from him to get established in the self. Jai Gurudev.
Thank you very much, Nilima, for giving a recap of the verses we studied in the last class, which primarily dealt with Karma Yoga. Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. As we come towards the end of the 18th chapter, Shri Krishna is successfully summarizing Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga. Essentially, these are the two sadhana that we need to be very clear. Here, the focus is on Arjuna. Arjuna now has to make up his mind whether he has understood Shri Krishna's message and come back to action. Today's verses all deal with Vedantic meditation or Nididhyasana. What is the difference between Upasana and Nididhyasana? Upasana is primarily a mental exercise. It is done so that our mind develops an eligibility for Vedantic wisdom. Vedantic wisdom being so refined, it requires a very special type of a mind. The mind should be available for us for as long as we want for that chosen activity. In order to train ourselves, the teacher subjects us to various forms of mental activity. All forms of upasanas are mental. Upasanas can be divided into three: Manasa Puja, Manasa Parayana, and Manasa Japa. Manasa Puja, for example, if you are traveling, you are far away from a place of worship, you don't have any equipment with you, you are by yourself, there are people around whom you can't disturb. So mentally, you do a Shiva Manasa Puja. So you imagine all the steps you are doing as if you're doing puja, that is Manasa Puja. Again, you are in a travel situation, you're not in your normal setup, you can't make a noise, nobody can listen, but then you are doing nothing and you want to recollect Shri Dakshina Murti Stotra. So if you mentally chant Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari, mentally, the entire Dakshina Murti, that becomes Manasa Parayana. For example, the third form of Upasana is Manasa Japa. For example, if the Guru has given you the mantra Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, and you are by yourself, again, the situation is the same. There are people around you. You're doing nothing. You don't want to disturb anybody else, but you want to make use of your time. With your eyes closed or with your eyes open, you are mentally chanting, not verbally, mentally. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. And if you do that, then your mind becomes available. Even for a jnani, even for a person with spiritual knowledge, Upasana is a very useful method to be able to harness your mind, because the real benefit of spiritual wisdom comes when your mind is available for you, because the real locus for all our problems is in the mind. What is Nididhyasanam? Nididhyasanam is done after Vedantic wisdom. The teacher has given you Vedantic wisdom. The entire Bhagavad Gita is over. Now I have got this knowledge. I have not only got this knowledge is doubt-free. I have clarified with my teacher. I have clarified with my colleagues. Now I know the teaching is very clear. So let us be clear about what is this Vedantic meditation or Nididhyasanam. Nididhyasanam is a shift from Jnanam to Jnana nishta. The usual example given is, it is not the amount of food that you eat that really gives you the energy. It is the amount of food that is digested and assimilated. So too, just adding a sweetener to your drink does not help unless it is properly stirred. So too, the purpose of Nididhyasanam is that your subconscious mind should get the teaching. And what is the teaching? I now move from the triangular format of Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara to the binary format of Aham Satyam Jagan Mithya. I am the only reality. Whatever I experience is of a lower order of reality. And what is this you're meditating on? My true nature. I am Nityaha, Satyaha, Buddhaha, Muktaha. And how do we do it? Just like Manasa Japa, it is going on, repeating the same thing again and again, so that those habitual notions go away. What is the content that I need to work on? That there is only one reality. Brahman or Atma is the only reality. The world that I experience, including my body and mind, is of a lower order of reality. My true nature is the nature of Atma or Brahman. To repeat, who does Nididhyasanam? One who has gone through Shravanam and Mananam. And for him, the message is very clear. Aham Satyam Jagan Mithya. There is only one direct purpose, that this has to go into my subconscious mind. Now, therefore, in any provoking situations, don't get disturbed. You are far bigger than any situation that you experience, because I am Atma Brahman. We not only have to strengthen the fact that I am Brahma, all the nature characteristics of Brahman. I am Jagat Adhishtanam. Because of me, the whole world has come into existence. In reality, I don't do anything, and therefore I'm not even a bhokta. But it is in my presence, the body does whatever it has to be done. In reality, I am Nityaha. I am there from the very beginning, Shuddhaha, and so on. In addition to strengthening the fact that I am the only reality, we need to work on that the world is not so real, because the more I give reality to the five anatmas. What are the five anatmas I tend to give reality to? The first is ahankara, my body and mind. Then mamakara, my family, my possessions, my professions. I need to reduce them or devalue them as if they are only for purposes of transaction, but they're not as real as me. And therefore, they will not disturb me. And this is another fact, that I am asangaha. A person in dream, so that means when a person is constantly looking for a prospective groom for his daughter, but in his dream he finds a very suitable bridegroom. Now, is it possible for a person in his dream, the prospective groom in the dream, to get married to his daughter? Not possible, because these are of two different orders of reality. Between two different orders of reality, no relationship is possible. This is the meaning of the word asangaha. And if I know that I am of the higher order of reality than my own body, mind, my family, my possessions, my profession, then I develop what is asangaha. I am incapable of being truly affected by anything that happens to any of these anatmas. And finally, what is the definition of Nididhyasanam as given by in Yoga Vashishta and also quoted in Panchadashi? Tat chintanam, tat katanam, anyon tat prabodhanam, ekadeka paratvamcha, brahmabhyas vidur buddhaha. Tat chintanam, all the time thinking of that alone, of my true nature. Tat katanam, speaking about that alone. Anyon tat prabodhanam. Whenever you have an opportunity to awaken others through conversation or through discourse, bring that day in and day out. Eka deka paratvamcha. Brahmabhyas vidhu buddhaha. Wise people say this is what is called Nididhyasanam. If this is clear, we will understand the significance of these verses, what Shri Krishna is talking all about Nididhyasanam. Diksha, please.
Thank you, Doctor. The verse goes as Buddhya Vishuddhaya Yukto Dhrityatmanam Niyamya Cha Shabdadin Vishayans Tyaktva Ragadvesha Vyuddhasya Cha. So in this last chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is the 18th chapter, it is the longest as it explains many subjects. It starts with Arjuna requesting Shri Krishna to educate him on renunciation and explain the differences between these two Sanskrit words. They are sannyasa, which is renunciation of actions, and tyaga, which is renunciation of desires, as both come from the root words that mean to abandon. A sannyasi is the one who has renounced family and social life to practice sadhana. And a tyagi is one who acts without selfish desires for the rewards of his actions. In this slide, as you can see, Sri Krishna recommends another type of renunciation apart from these renunciations. He declares that one should never renounce the prescribed acts of duty, service, charity, penance, etc., as these aid in the purification of even the wisest souls. One should undertake actions only as a matter of duty without any attachment to their fruits. In the next two shlokas, Shri Krishna illustrates the lifestyle of a monk who has entered the stage of sannyasa or renunciation. The urge to perform a lot of physical actions should be low for such a person. Otherwise, it is impossible for him to even enter a monastic life. Now, the focus slowly shifts towards regulating the mind. Now, all of us are aware that we have, these huge desires and huge distractions. And for us, we would think that it's very hard for us to remove those bigger distractions. But for a person who's entered the life of sannyasa, he's already conquered not getting distracted by all of these big distractions. The problem that he faces is doing away with the smaller distractions, with smaller material desires. Therefore, since the sannyasi has already eliminated his strongest material desires, he has to focus on the ones that are weaker, with a view of completely eradicating them as well. Now, in this slide, you can see some of the characteristics. So such a sannyasi has a buddhi or intellect, which is vishuddha, which is extremely pure, free from any doubts and misconceptions about the nature of the material world. There is not even a trace of doubt about the existence of joy in inert objects. His dhriti or fortitude is sattvic. He has complete mastery over his mind. He is able to regulate his mind by his intellect and prevent it from wandering into materialistic thoughts. Even if that does happen, his vision prevents those thoughts from causing further desire. Now, how is he able to do that? Next slide, doctor. This world is nothing but names and forms, as we all are aware of. The forms are comprised of 5 different elements. They are space, air, fire, water, and earth. Shabda Adin in this verse refers to these 5 elements. The sannyasi is able to look at any object or person, see through the name and form, and understand that it is nothing but the 5 elements combined together. Realizing that any combination of these elements is nothing but prakriti or matter, he is able to eliminate any sense of raga or dvesha, which is like or dislike, towards that object or person. So he sees everything in this world with a very indifferent view. Krishna goes on to say that only through loving devotion one can unravel the secrets of the supreme divine personality. He then reminds Arjuna that God dwells in the hearts of all living creatures and directs their movement according to their karmas. We must take his shelter, think of him, dedicate all our actions to him, and make him our ultimate goal. Then, by his grace, we will easily overcome all difficulties and obstacles. However, if we get driven by pride and act according to our impulses, we will fail. Therefore, to conclude, Sri Krishna reveals to Arjuna that the most confidential knowledge is to abandon all variations of attachment and only surrender to God. However, he wants that you should share this knowledge only with the devoted and not with those who are not, for they may misinterpret this divine knowledge and misuse it. But expounding this confidential knowledge to the deserving souls is the highest act of love that is cherished by God himself. Thank you.
Thank you, Viksha. Let us see what Sri Krishna has said in this particular verse. Now here again, we are trying to become a meditator, one who is a yukta. That means one whose intellect is vishuddha, who's purified, and niyama, whose atma. Atma here means the mind is controlled. Dhritya, through determination. Tyaktva, having given up all worldly sense objects. Yuddhasya, that means having given up raga and dvesha. Now these are the conditions required for a mind which is suitable for nididhyasanam or meditation. We continue the same idea in the next verse. Venkatesh Prasad, please.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Krishna's class on Nidhidhyasanam continues. Let us see what he has to say in verse 52, which goes like this. Vivikta sevi lagvasi yatavakaya manasaha dhyana yoga paro nityam vairagyam samupashritaha. Resorting to a secluded place, taking limited food, restraining the speech, the body and the mind, taking to detachment, one should be ever devoted to Jnana Yoga. So, Vivikta Sevi, choose a relatively secluded place where the external disturbances is minimum. Viviktaha means secluded place, and elsewhere Krishna uses the word ekaki. Preferably be alone. Not only that, it will be a nice training also to be alone. It is very, very important faculty we have to develop, because ultimately we are alone, whether we are facing serious problems as others can never understand the problem, or in the night when we do not get sleep and all others are snoring away, and in the old age. So it is a fact that we are traveling alone, we are born alone, and we have to die alone. This meditation will help develop that at solitude, and therefore Krishna says Vivikta Sevi. Then Lagvasi, eating in a regulated manner, eating in a limited measure, eating in moderation. All these we have seen, because only when the stomach is not full, the mind will work. Therefore, Lagvasi. Then Yata Vak Kaya Manasaha. Learn to master all your organs. Vak means organ of speech. Kaya means the physical body. Manasaha means the mind. All of them are Yata. Yata means withdrawn from the external world. Vairagyam samupashritaha, invoking detachment. So, at the time of meditation, you tell, I am not a husband, I am not a wife, I am not a father, I am not a grandfather, I am not an employer, I am not an employee. All these roles invoke a sangha, and every association will cause its own type of disturbance. Tell yourselves, I am not related to anything. And ultimately, that is the fact, because all the worldly relationships are temporary and incidental. They were never there before the birth, and they will never be there after the death. It is for a few decades that is there. Only permanent relationship is with the Lord alone, because Ishvara Sambandha was in every Janma, whereas Manushya Sambandha is not in every Janma. In the last Janma, whether I was a Manushya or not itself is doubtful. Kaivalya Upanishad advises drop all incidental relationships and invoke only three relationships: Ishvara Sambandha, Guru Sambandha, and Shastra Sambandha. Therefore, Vairagyam Upashritaha. Therefore, hand over all the responsibilities to the Lord, who declares in verse 9.22, Ananyaschintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Now, you have got a free body, free sense organs, free mind, and free intellect. Nityam, use all the time. Dhyana yoga paraha, dwelling upon the shastram. Krishna says paraha. Para means to be committed to. Be sincerely, wholeheartedly, diligently committed to the sadhana of Vedantic meditation. If a person has not studied Vedanta, then also he can practice meditation. But before Vedantic study, the meditation is called Upasana. which is meditating upon our own Ishta Devatas in the form of Rama, Krishna, etc. But here we are talking about post-Vedantic study where the substance of meditation is one truth. Behind God, behind the world, and behind this body-mind complex, and that one truth is Satchidananda Atma. Next slide, sir. Next one, sir. This is beautifully depicted by Shankara in one of his great compositions, Manisha Panchakam, which goes like this. Brahmaivahamidam jagatya sakalam chinmatra vistaritam sarvam chaitadavidyaya trigunaya shesham maya kalpitam ittam yasya drudamati sukatare nitye pare nirmale Chandalostu satudvijostu gururityesha manisha mama. I am quite convinced that he is the great master, be he a Brahmin or an outcast, who, dwelling on the pure and infinite Brahman, thinks of himself as that very Brahman, of whose manifestation the whole universe is, though apparently the universe is assumed to consist of different things due to ignorance and the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. Next slide, sir. So, it is I, the consciousness, is a substratum of this body, this world, and even God's body. So, dwelling upon the truth is called Jnana Yoga Paratvam. Let us dwell upon Aham Brahmasmi. Let us dwell upon Shivoham. Again, as Shankara says, Mano Buddhyahankara Chittani naham nacha shrotra jihve nacha grana netre nacha vyoma bhumir na tejo na vayu chidananda rupah shivoham shivoham chidananda rupah shivoham shivoham. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Venkatesh, for an excellent presentation of this verse, along with beautiful chanting of relevant verses for Nididhyasanam. Vikitsa Sevi Lagu Ashi. Lagu Vash. Now, these verses remind us of the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita about what are the antaranga sadhanas required for a meditation. A person who has got Brahma Vidya now remains alone. He does not necessarily need to or feel obligated to fit with others. He is happy to be by himself. And part of his sadhana is that he eats lightly. And yati means also a sannyasi. Yathai means one who has control on vak, speech, kaya, body, and manasa. When all the time, nityam, and Jnana Yoga Paraha, who's engaged in meditation, and what kind of an attitude? An attitude of vairagya. So he has no more drawn to this particular world. Such a person is conducive for Vedantic meditation. We have another verse which gives us some more conditions for meditation, which will be explained to us by Dr. Anupama. Dr. Anupama, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, verse 53. Ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodam parigraham vimuchya nirmamaha santo brahma bhuyaya kalpate. In order to evolve from Jiva Bhava to Ishvara Bhava, Antaranga Sadhana is highlighted here. The purpose of Nididhyasanam is to weaken our habitual thoughts, our Jiva Bhavaha, which is the cause of samsara. For example, I think I'm mortal. Vedanta says, I'm immortal. I think the world is real. Vedanta says, no, it's mithya. I think God is in heaven. Vedanta says, Tattvam Asi. This verse here expresses the need to rid ourselves of negativity, the asuric gunas called dushta chatushtayam, namely ahankara, mamakara, raga, and dvesham. Now, How is this possible? Nididhyasanam should enable us to hand over our port, possessions, obligations, relationships, and transactions to God. Yad bhavyam bhavati bhagwan purva rupa karma anurupam, meaning whatever has to happen to these, my port, in accordance with the laws of karma, let them just happen. I will certainly continue to do my duties. Dushta Chatushtaya is centered around the need for power to overcome our delusion of insecurity. So our tools become ahankara, the identification with body-mind complex, mamakara, identification with family, profession, possession, balam, the need for power contaminated by raga, dvesha. This is a kind of negative power. Darpam means arrogance born out of power. Kamam is raga dvesha, raga or desire for more power. Krodham is anger or dvesha when power is denied. And parigraha is acquisition of all purposes needed to retain power. It's being possessed by one's possessions. We see that this dushta chatushtayam draws us to this bottomless pit of samsara. Unfortunately, insecurity and power go hand in hand. Therefore, Krishna says, renounce, vimuchya, and don't get attached, nirmamaha. The outcome of this renunciation. Why is this renunciation of port and clasp so difficult? The obstacle here is a mix-up of Atma and Ahankara Mamakara, called Ajnana or Atma Anatma Aviveka. How does this Ajnana obstruct? Here's a simple analogy. Consider this. If Jivatma is comparable to a photograph with a sticky posterior and Ahankara Mamakara to the glazed paper behind it, if Brahman is the book onto which this photo has to be stuck, then as long as the glazed paper, Ahankara Mamakara, is attached to the photo, Jivatma, it cannot stick to the book, Brahman. For Jivatma, the photo, to merge with Brahman, the book, nothing needs to be added. We just have to remove the attractive glazed paper, the Ahankara Mamakara, which is the obstacle between me, the Jivatma, and Brahman. Similarly, Nididhyasanam removes this dushta chatushtaya, and what remains is the original consciousness. Now, does this original consciousness undergo any change to become Brahman? No. Brahman status is not acquired. Jivatma is Paramatma. In conclusion, this Brahma Bhava or Brahma status is claimed by the reduction of port, possessions, obligations, relationships, and transactions, and the reduction of clasp, controllership, anxiety, and sakama prayers. Is this practical? Who then will take care of my at least basic port and clasp? Krishna says, Ananyas chintayanto mam ye janaha paryupasate tesham nityapi yuktanam yoga kshemam vahamya aham. Aham. Now, who is this aham? Lord Krishna himself. What is the advantage of this reduction? Shantihi or uparataha, an undistracted mind with only one thought, aham brahma asmi. This seeker now becomes Brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anupama, for giving us a very forceful dushta chatustaya that we need to work on. Ahankara, mamakara, raga, and dvesha. Now, if we can work on all this, including all our possessions, that is through reduction of our possessions and through reduction of clasp, we will become automatically discover our true nature. As you gave the very nice example that there is a photograph with an adhesive surface, but it is covered by a film of ahankara and mamakara. As long as that film is not removed, we cannot become one with the total. Verse 54 is a very beautiful verse, and this is the culmination of this understanding. It will be explained by Dr. Srinivas Nuti. Dr. Srinivas, please.
Yes, sir. Sri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Verse number 54. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kankshati samah sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labhate param. So let us see the meaning of each word. The first word is Brahma Bhutaha. So here, this word is a little bit confusing and different meanings have been ascribed. Here it is becoming Brahman. Not that Brahma Bhutaha means he has already obtained Jivan Mukta status. Or we can also say that probably he is able to understand the concept of Brahman. That also can be the meaning. But the one thing is clear, that this does not mean that he has already become Brahman or he has already not become Jivan Mukta. That is because, so whenever we are understanding the verses, we should always take the previous verses and the next verses. It is a context have to be taken. So if you see the next verse in 54, he says, Mad Bhaktim Labhate Param. In the same verse in the next line. So after he gets supreme bhakti. In the next verse, he says, Mam Vishate Tad Anantaram. After getting the devotion, he enters into me. And then in verse number 56, he says, Krishna says, Apnoti Shashvata Padam Abhyayam. So after he enters me, he becomes Brahman. So these are Brahma Bhuta. So the point here is, Brahma Bhutaha means not, he has already not become a Jivan Mukta, but he's in the process of becoming a Jivan Mukta. That is the meaning of Brahma Bhutaha. Next slide, sir. Prasannatma. Prasannatma means, Atma means here mind-intellect complex. So the mind-intellect complex has become serene and calm. So in the three verses, the Lord Krishna has mentioned the Antaranga and Bahiranga sadhanas, which we have to do. So after doing all these sadhanas, the mind should become calm and serene. And here, this Prasannatma is, as Sir has mentioned, these are the meditative verses. And in that, this could be another meditative verse. The Lord Rama once told that his mind always used to be calm and serene. So he never had any hesitations in his mind. So this could be one of the meditative word in this verse. So my mind is always calm and serene. I do not have any hesitations. There are no thought processes. This is also a meditative word in these meditative verses. Na shochati, na kankshati. So neither he desires, because he does not have any desire, so he does not grieve. So the meaning of the first word is Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kankshati. One who has done all the Antaranga Bahiranga sadhana, and for whom the mind has become calm. He neither desires anything nor he grieves for anything. So next line is Samas Sarva Bhuteshu Mat Bhaktim Labate Param. Samas Sarveshu Bhuteshu Samaha. So he sees all living beings as equal. He sees he is not there. That we have to put it. We have to put it as Adhyaharam. So Samaha Sarva Bhuteshu Samaha Pashyati. Like that we can add that word Pashyati. So he treats, or he sees, or he understands all living beings as equal. And then Mad Bhaktim Labhate Param. Mad Bhaktim means this word can be split into, it's a samasa. It's not a sandhi, it's a samasa. So Mad Bhaktim is Mai Bhaktihi Mad Bhaktihi Tam. That's how it is split. Basically, so what it means is Mai Bhakti, Nannalli Bhakti. That's the meaning of this. It's a Saptami Tatpurusha. Saptami means in the Nannalli, that word comes. So Nannalli Bhakti. In me, he gets the devotion. Param means, it refers to, Param means supreme or Para Bhakti. Param is an adjective for the word Bhakti. Labhate means one gets. So, so what he's saying is, so a man who is almost in the process of becoming a Jivan Mukta, he gets a calm mind. He neither desires nor grieves, and he sees all living beings as equal. And with these eligibilities, he gets the supreme devotion to the Lord. So here it's the commentators have defined what is meant by bhakti as defined by Adi Shankaracharya. That is, bhakti here means swaswarupa anusandhanam bhaktiriti abhidhiyate. So basically bhakti is nothing but swaswarupa anusandhanam. So identifying oneself as the Brahman. So this we can take it here. So next slide, sir. So these verse number 51 to 56, this is a summary of Bhagavad Gita. And in the previous three verses, 51, 52, 53, he has enumerated the 11 sadhanas, which a sadhak has to do, like a sharp and a very clean Vishuddha intellect, one who has controlled the mind with the dhriti, because you need to have more courage to control the mind than to control our enemies. So sense organs have to be rejected, raga dvesha has to be removed. One should be able to live in solitude. One should take up mitaharam, one should control, and the speech, mind and body should be in sync and it should be controlled. One should be in Jnana Yoga. Next slide. So complete dispassion, vairagyam samupasritaha. So shritaha means we should take ashrayam, we should surrender. Samupasrita, ashritaha is an adjective. Upa is another adjective, sa is another adjective. So he has given three adjectives. The word samupasritaha contains three prefixes. So it only highlights how much we have to take up the vairagyam. Vairagyam samupasritaha. So it could have as well been vairagyam shritaha or vairagyam ashritaha or vairagyam upashritaha. So sa upa a samupashritaha. So it only emphasizes, that's the beauty of the Sanskrit language, and also the importance of how much this vairagyam needs to a person. So then, as already mentioned, ego, balam, that is power, and previous slides, sir. So desire, anger, and parigraham, these are the antaranga sadhanas to be done. So mamakaram, we have to be free. Then if one attains all these 11 characteristics, that is one by one. So if you are trying to, if it is a tree, if this samsara is compared to a tree, the leaves, the fruits, the flowers, the branches, the smaller branches, the trunks, the main trunk. So gradually, one by one, you should keep cutting and coming towards the roots. So if we remove all these things, then we attain this shanta chittaha. That is, the mind becomes serene and calm and cool. So only then a person becomes eligible to attain the jnana. Next slide, sir. So in the previous verse, he has written Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. That means eligibility to become Brahman. So if you do all these sadhanas and get the 11 enumerated features, if we acquire, then we get the eligibility to become Brahman. Brahma Bhutaha Mad Bhaktim Labate. So once we get this Brahma Bhuta state, that is Prasannatma state, one gets the supreme devotion towards the Lord. So after that, in the next verses, he says, Bhaktya Mam Abhijanati. So once he gets this supreme devotion, he knows the essence of the Lord. He knows who I am and where I am. That is Lord Krishna is telling. He knows who I am. So with this supreme surrender and bhakti, only he knows. Then once he knows, Mam Vishate Tadanantaram. Once he knows the essence of me, then he enters into me. And then very important word is Mat Prasadat, with my grace. So without his grace, nothing is possible. That's the meaning also. So this is also called as Anugraham. So our job is only to get that calm and serene mind and understand the supreme devotion, only up to there. Afterwards, it is all his grace and his Anugraham. Avapnoti Shashvatam Padam Avyayam. So one attains the eternal, indestructible state. This is the ultimate state which we attain. So the sadhanas which we have to do, the internal and external sadhanas, the eligibilities, the calm, serene mind, then getting the supreme devotion, then understanding the essence of the Lord, then entering into the essence of the Lord, and by his grace, one attains the mukti or liberation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Srinivas, for not only explaining this very beautiful verse, very often quoted, but also to give us the next three verses, which are the continuation of these verses. And as you get a feel of this verse, you have already come to the Sthita Prajna portion of the 18th chapter. So what happens once you understand your true nature? Once you discover your divine nature, few things immediately happen. There is no more sorrow, there is no more desire. And how is your attitude to everybody? You're able to see yourself in everyone, and you're able to see everyone in you. Now, this is the highest state a person can attain to, and this is what is true bhakti, param bhakti. So the highest form of a bhakti is a jnani bhakti, as mentioned in this verse. We have one more verse. Dr. Satyanarayana, please.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. In 18th chapter, Lord Krishna summarizes Karma Yoga 3 times and Jnana Yoga 2 times. First time Jnana Yoga summary was from 13th to 17th verse, wherein Shravanam was highlighted. Now second time, this summary is from verse 50 to 55, where is Nidhidhyasanam is highlighted. As we have seen earlier, Nidhidhyasanam is assimilating the knowledge where mind dwells upon the teachings of a guru received during Shravanam. This verse 55 is a consolidating verse where Lord Krishna summarizes the topic of Nidhidhyasana. The verse goes like this. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tatvataha tato mam tatvato gnatva vishate tadanantaram. Next slide. Bhaktya mam abhijanati. This phrase, this line means a person with Nidhidhyasana Rupa Bhakti becomes Ishvara Jnana Nishta. Yavan yaschashmi tatvataha. Who and how much I am truly. Tato mam tatvato gnatva. Having known me in my higher nature, vishate tadanantaram. As a consequence of that nirguna jnanam, he enters into me. That is, the verse meaning is, only by loving devotion to me does one come to me who I am in truth. Then, having come to me, my devotee enters into full consciousness of me. Next slide. Imagine a brightly illumined room. Every object in the room is pervaded and illumined by the light. When I experience the object, I am experiencing the light also, which pervades the objects. I don't require any special effort to experience the light. We often take light for granted. I don't register the ever experienced light in my mind. I don't require any guru to give the experience of light. A guru is required only to turn our attention towards ever experienced light. To make me know that formless, limitless light illumines the formed, limited objects. Our mind is exactly like brightly illumined room. It is illumined by the light of consciousness. The experience of any thought includes the experience of consciousness. And I don't require any special effort to experience the consciousness. My only problem is I have taken consciousness for granted. A guru is required to turn my attention towards the ever experienced consciousness. The formless, limitless consciousness illumines all thoughts. And this guided meditation on this Sakshi Chaitanyam is Nididhyasanam. A Nididhyasaka assimilates the knowledge both in higher and lower nature. And Bhagavan and Bhakta are not one and the same. Bhagavan is a total, the macrocosm. And I, the devotee, am the microcosm. In a relative field, there is difference, but at the absolute level, there is neither microcosm nor macrocosm. There is only Nirguna Chaitanyam. And once I transcend time and space and come to Chaitanyam, there is nothing to divide me and God. This merging into God is dropping the notion of division caused by ignorance. As a dreamer merges into a waker on waking up, this also is a silent affair. Next slide. Now, how do we find whether Nididhyasanam or study of Gita as such is bringing any change in me? There are certain indicators and Swami Paramarthananda ji has put it up as FIR. F stands for frequency of mental disturbances, and this comes down as we get Jnanam. The intensity of reaction to mental disturbances also come down in all three forms: physical form, verbal form, and mental level. Recovery period after mentally disturbed is reduced, and I take less and less time to come back to normalcy. This is resilience quotient. Let us all introspect and see where we stand and how we need to acquire this Jnanam. Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Satyanarayana. That was a very simple but a very clear explanation of what is Nididhyasanam and what is the benefit of Nididhyasanam. Essentially, through devotion, you will achieve the highest form of spiritual knowledge. You will get to know God in His true reality. And then you will realize that there is nothing separate. The space within the room is not different from the total space. It is only my idea about the walls or giving reality to the walls give me a sense of being apart from the total space. With that, we come to the end of these beautiful set of 5 verses on Nididhyasanam. We will have Titiksha chant them for us. Titiksha, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Buddhya Vishuddhaya Yukto Trityatmanam Niyamya Cha Shabdadin Vishayan Styaktva Raghadvesho Vyudasya Cha Viviktasi Vilagvashi Yatavakaya Manasaha Dhyana Yoga Paro Nityam Vairagyam Samupashitaha Ahankaram Balam Dharpam Kamam Krodam Parigraham Vimujja Nirmama Shanto Brahma Bhuyayo Kalpate Brahma Bhuyayo Kalpate Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma Na Shochati Na Kankshati Samah Sarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhaktim Labate Param Bhaktya Mam Abhijanati Yavanyashchasmi Tattvataha Tato Mam Tattvato Jnatva Vishate Taddanantaram. Thank you.
Thank you, Titiksha, for a wonderful divine chanting. Thank you, all speakers, for a wonderful class. Thank you, friends, for your active participation and invaluable feedback, which keeps us on toes to maintain the quality of our sessions. On Monday, 3rd April 2023, let's log in for a new session of Disha for the discovery of inner strength and happiness at 6:45 p.m. In this episode of Disha, our study of Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga will continue further, along with the topic of Upasana Yoga as explained in Tattvabodha. With this, let's conclude with our Shanti Mantra. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you.